Hello students, a very happy morning to you all. I am Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Ramakrishnan, your physics tutor. Today I am going to cover the chapter Semiconductor Devices and Digital Circuits. So let us quickly go through what are the important concepts and formula you have to learn in this particular chapter. This chapter is got 1.5 or 2% weightage, you can say. So you can expect one question from this particular chapter, one or two questions. So when I say this is a very important chapter though, and you can expect most of them to be theoretical questions here. Instead of calculations, very less of calculations or numericals here. So it is more of theoretical questions. So you'll have to be very, very thorough with the concept. So you can make a note of what I'm telling, the conceptual part. Of course, the formula part we've done the revision notes. So the theoretical part, whatever I am telling, you can make a note of it. Be careful with each and every word. So before that, let us quickly go through the how to access the revision notes and the test series in Classics. So go to classics.com. This is our home page. You can click on the practice session. You can select the package, Neat Reading Premium. So there you can see the revision notes. The revision notes is basically the essence of all the formula and concepts which you have done for all the three subjects. Neat point of view. It is tailor-made for physics, chemistry, and biology. We have done chapter-wise. You can see for all the three subjects we have done right from the first chapter for both to the last chapter for both grade 11 and grade 12. So it consists of all the important formula and the concepts, whatever concepts, the important concepts you have to learn. And quickly go through this. And if you are going to attempt the chapter-wise tests, you can as well go to the chapter, each chapter, make yourself thorough with the formula and the concepts, and then take the test. Now let us go to the chapter Semiconductor, Electronics and Simple Circuit. So here when we say semiconductors, you know, semiconductors have very much high resistivity than metals. The temperature coefficient of resistivity is both negative and high. They have very considerable low number of density of charge carriers than metals. Semiconductors can be either, they can be elemental like silicon, germanium, or they can be compound also, gallium arsenic, cadmium, sulfur, etc. That they can be either elemental or compounds also. So when we talk about the energy band, what is an energy band? An enormously large number of energy levels closely spaced in a very small energy range, they constitute an energy band. I'll repeat, an enormously large number of energy levels closely spaced in a very small energy range constitute an energy band. So the allowed energy bands are separated by regions in which energy levels cannot exist. So these forbidden regions are called as band gaps or energy gaps. The highest energy band gap occupied by the valence electrons is called as a valence band, and the next empty allowed band is called as the conduction band. So this is very important to know, the valence band and the conduction band. So this is very important. When we talk about the distinction between the metals, insulators and semiconductors on the basis of the band theory, you can say that in the metals, the conduction band is partially filled, or the valence and the conduction bands, they overlap. So in that case, you can see the energy gap EG is 0. And in the case of insulators, the conduction band is empty and the valence band is filled. Okay, so the forbidden energy gap is very large, of the order of or you can say Eg is greater than 3 electron volts. And when we come down to semiconductors, the empty conduction band is separated from the filled valence band by a small energy gap, say Eg lesser than 3 electron volts. Some electrons of the valence band easily gets thermally excited to the conduction band, and then they can conduct electricity. So semiconductors acquire small conductivity even at room temperature. This is a very important point you have to know. Next, coming to doping. Doping is nothing but the process of deliberate, you are going to add deliberately the impurities, desirable impurities to a pure semiconductor so that you can increase its conductivity. This process is called as doping. So the impurity atoms which are added to these elements, they are called as the dopants. So generally dopants are of two types, that is pentavalent dopants and trivalent dopants. Pentavalent dopants examples are arsenic, phosphorus. These are some of the examples for pentavalent dopants. And for trivalent dopants, it is aluminum, boron, etc. Trivalent dopants. Pentavalent dopants are also called as donors, and trivalent dopants, they are called as acceptors. All right. Next, coming to the when we talk about the extrinsic semiconductor. So intrinsic and extrinsic semiconductors. So electrical conduction in pure semiconductors occurs by means of electron-hole pairs. So in an intrinsic semiconductor, you can say the free electron density in the conduction band is, if suppose if you take Ne as the free electron density in the conduction band and NH as the hole density in the valence band, and Ni is the intrinsic carrier concentration, then you can say Ne is equal to NH is equal to Ni. Okay, so that is the case for intrinsic semiconductors. When we talk about the extrinsic semiconductors, here there are two. Here the semiconductors, they are now going to be doped with suitable impurities so that you can increase the conductivity. Okay, so in that case, again we have two types of extrinsic semiconductors. One is the N-type semiconductor and the other is the P-type semiconductor. In the N-type semiconductor, you can say the electrons of the majority carriers. Here the electrons are the majority carriers and holes are the minority carriers. Or in other words, you can say here Ne is equal to Nd, which is greater than Nh. Okay? So in a P-type conductor, you can say that the trivalent impurity atoms we call them as acceptors. I told you before, because they can create holes which can accept electrons from the nearby bonds. Okay, so a semiconductor doped with acceptor type impurities is called as the P-type semiconductor. Note the difference. Pentavalent impurity atoms, they are called as donors because they donate electrons to the host cell. So the N-type semiconductors, the electrons are majority carriers. Whereas when we come to P-type conductors, here we can see the semiconductor is doped with acceptor type of impurities and it is called as a P-type. So here the holes are the majority carriers and the electrons are the minority carriers. Or in other words, you can put it as NH is equal to Na lesser than Ne. Okay, so this is a very important thing. Or in a semiconductor, as a general, you can say Ne into Nh is equal to Ni squared, where I told you Ne is the number of electrons and Nh is the number of holes, and Ni is, or you can say Ne is the free electron density and Nh is the hole density. Ne is the free electron density in the conduction band, and Nh is the hole density in the valence band, and Ni is the intrinsic carrier concentration. So that can be given by the formula Ni squared is equal to Ne into Nh. All right. So holes, when we talk about the holes, the vacancy or absence of electrons in the bond of a covalently bonded crystal is called as a hole. The hole serves as a positive charge carrier. So this is very important thing you have to know. Now coming to the p-n junction. So p-n junction, it is a single crystal of germanium or silicon doped in such a manner that one half of the portion is going to act as P-type semiconductor, and the other half will act as a or function as a N-type semiconductor. So as soon as the P-N junction is formed, what happens is the holes from the P junction will diffuse into the N region, and the electrons from the N region will diffuse into the P region. So there develops a potential barrier VB across the junction. So this is now going to oppose the further diffusion of electrons and holes through the junction. So the small region in the vicinity of the junction, which is depleted of the free charge carrier, and it has got only immobile ions, and this is called as the depletion region. All right. So here in the PN junction, we have to the terms we have to remember are potential barrier and the depletion zone. Next is forward biasing. Forward biasing and reverse biasing in a PN junction. So if the positive terminal of the battery is connected to the P side and the negative terminal to the N side, then the PN junction is said to be forward biased. If the positive terminal of the battery is connected to the N side and the negative terminal to the P side, then the PN junction is said to be the reverse bias. Right. Next, coming to the Zener diode. Zener diode, a junction diode specially designed to work only in the reverse breakdown region. Remember, reverse breakdown region continuously is called as the Zener diode. This is a very important point you have to know. It is now going to be in the, this is now going to work only in the reverse breakdown region. Okay, so this is used as a voltage regulator. Photodiode, it is a junction diode made of a photosensitive semiconducting material in such a way that light can fall on its junction. It is operated in a reverse bias condition. This also works on the reverse bias condition. So the photon excitation results in the change of reverse saturation current that will help us to measure the light intensity. Then the light emitting diode, it is a forward biased PN junction which spontaneously converts the biasing electrical energy into optical energy, like say the infrared and the visible region. Now again, this is made up from made from a translucent semiconductor like gallium arsenide, etc. LEDs are used in hand calculators, cash registers, digital clocks. Of course, nowadays we have LED bulbs also, which is more preferable than the old incandescent bulb. It is eco-friendly also. And then coming to the junction transistor, you have the so here we have to remember the terms. Three components of the transistor are emitter, collector, and base. The base is very thin and lightly doped. The emitter is always forward biased and the collector is always reverse biased. The emitter supplies a large number of majority charge carriers for the flow of current through the transistor. The base, the function of the base is to control the flow of majority charge carriers from emitter to cathode. And the function of the collector is to collect the majority charge carriers from the transistor operation. Okay. So now we have three configurations of, before that, let us go to the action of transistor. So when the emitter base junction is forward biased, what happens is the majority charge carriers are pushed from the emitter to base. Few electrons and holes recombine in the base region. So most of the majority charge carriers cross over to the reversed bias collector. So the collector current IC is always slightly less than the emitter current. That is, you can see if IE is the emitter current, IC is the collector current, and IB is the base current, then you can say IE is equal to IC plus B, IC. See, this is what, this is a very important thing. IE is equal to IB plus IC. So the three configurations of transistor, a transistor can be used in one of the three configurations, that is common base. Here we are now seeing more about amplifiers. So common base amplifier, common emitter amplifier, common base amplifier, and common emitter amplifier. Because this actually the transistor and transistor as a switch is now is omitted. So we are now going to concentrate only more on amplifiers. So when we talk about amplifiers, you can say the common base transistor amplifier, that is DC current wheel. It is defined as the ratio of the collector to the emitter current. Collector to the emitter. So alpha is equal to IC by IE. And AC current, this is for DC. Okay, for AC current gain, it is defined as the ratio of the small change in the collector current to the small change in the emitter. See, IC by delta I. And then coming to the voltage gain, yeah, voltage gain. Okay, now coming to the common emitter amplifier, beta is equal to IC by IB. Okay, IC by IE, IB. That is for DC gain again. And for AC gain, it is going to be delta IC by IB. And for a common base amplifier, you can see that it is nothing but AB is equal to, here, AB is now going to be the small change in the output. So it is defined as the small change in the output voltage to the small change in the input voltage. That is what is given as delta VC by delta VI. So that is now going to be the voltage gain, right? In the voltage gain is now given as the small change in the so VC by, so small change in the output divided by the small change in the input. So, or you can even put it as alpha AC into RO by RI, where RO stands for the resistance and resistance of the output by the resistance of the input. Okay, so that is given by. So common emitter amplifier, for a common emitter amplifier, you can see that it is AV, the voltage gain is equal to delta VC by delta VB. Okay, delta VC is by delta VB, which is equal to beta times AC into RO by RI. So power gain is equal to voltage gain into current. So these are the important things you have to know regarding the transistors. Now let us come to the logic gates. Logic gates, of course, computer students, you would have been learning, those who have learned computers, they should be aware of this. Logic gate, what is a logic gate? A logic gate is a digital circuit that has one or more inputs, but only one output. Okay, that's got only one output. It follows a logical relationship between the input and the output voltages. Of course, I guess this is deleted for a neat point of view. But anyways, I'll give a quick, we'll just go through this quickly because neat point of view, we don't have the logic gates. It is deleted. So the truth table is a table that shows all possible input combination and the corresponding outputs for the logic gate. So this is now going to show you the OR gate. OR gate, it is a digital circuit having two or more inputs, okay, but only one output. So it gives a high output if either input or B, A or B or both are high. Otherwise, it will have a low output, 0. So if both the output are high, then it is 1. Otherwise, if it is going to be a low output, it is marked with 0. So it is described by the Boolean expression A plus B is equal to Y. So this gives the truth table for OR gate. Next, coming to the AND gate. It is a digital circuit having two or more inputs, but only one output. It gives a high output 1 if the inputs A and B are both high. Otherwise, it will give a low output 0. So this is described by the Boolean expression A dot B is equal to Y. So this is the truth table for AND gate. And then the NOT gate, you can see the NOT gate here. So that is given by, it is a digital circuit having only one output and one input, one input and one output. It gives a high output 1 if the input is low 0. It is denoted by 0 or vice versa. Then this is described by the Boolean expression A bar is equal to 1. So this is the symbol for NOT gate and the truth table is given here. So, and the NAND gate, it is obtained by connecting the output of an AND gate to the input of a NOT gate. Its input is high if both inputs A and B are not high. It is described by the Boolean expression A dot B bar, the whole bar is equal to Y. And the symbol is this, and the truth table is given here. And the NOR gate, finally, it is given by, it is obtained by connecting the output of an OR gate to the input of a NOR gate. Its output is high if neither input A nor input B is high. So this is described by the Boolean expression. A plus B bar is equal to Y. This is the symbol for NOR gate, and the truth table is given here. And these are the other things which you have to know, like say PN junction diode. The dynamic resistance RD is equal to delta V by delta I. Wattage of a diode is given by voltage drop into current. Half wave rectifier IDC is equal to, for a direct current, is equal to I0 by pi, and RMS is equal to I0 by root 2. I0 by 2, I'm sorry, I0 by 2. Output RMS voltage is given by V0 by 2. And for full wave rectifier, full wave rectifiers, it is given as IDC is equal to 2 I0 by pi, and IRMS is equal to I0 by root 2. And for the output voltage is given by IDC into RL, which is equal to 2 I0 by pi into RL. So these are the important things you have to know with regarding this semiconductors and devices. So we don't, the communication system, this chapter is being deleted, so we are not taking that into consideration. So let us now quickly go to the, having learned all the concepts in the semiconductor and devices. So as I told you, you can expect more of theoretical questions rather than the numericals. So you have to be very thorough with each and every point in the NCERT book. So please go through that. And also we have given the revision notes. I have mentioned, even though I have not given the concept, the theoretical part, I have mentioned everything in my, so you can go through these videos again and again and make thorough of all the concepts which I have mentioned earlier in the beginning of the class. Now let us quickly go to the test. So having learned the concepts and the formulae, now let us go see how to access the tests. Now we have the 3 tests: physics, chemistry, and biology, and needful tests also. So once you are thorough with all the concepts, we have done chapter-wise questions for all the subjects. You can see there are chapter-wise questions for all the chapters, covering from the first chapter to the last chapter. The blue bubble, you can see different colors here. The blue bubble says you have not taken the test yet. And the green one says you have already taken the test. Even if you have taken the test, you can take it any number of times until or otherwise you are happy with the results. And the red one says it's a random test. And the yellow one says it's an incomplete test. Okay. So now quickly let us go to the electronics, electronic devices. Click on that, take the test, go to the test. See, as I told you, there are more of theoretical questions which can be expected. Which of the following is true about semiconductors? Zero resistivity, low conductivity and high resistivity, high conductivity and low resistivity, variable conductivity and resistivity. All right. Now you know only superconductors have zero resistivity. Conductivity of a semiconductor is generally intermediate, but it varies widely under different conditions. This we have to remember, because the temperature change and the environmental change also counts here. So it is very important. So conductivity of a semiconductor is generally intermediate, but it varies under different conditions, and they can pass current more easily in one direction than in other. So variable resistance and conductivity. So option D should be correct. Fermi energy is energy associated bottom level of partially filled band in metal, energy associated with high occupied level in partially filled band at 0 degrees Celsius, energy associated with the highest occupied level in partially filled band at 0 degrees Kelvin, and potential energy of conducting electron. Now, the energy associated with Fermi level, The highest occupied level in partially filled band in a metal at 0 degrees is going to be the correct option. So we can click that and go to the next. Semiconductors are doped with donor atoms with majority carriers as holes, electrons, positrons, and atoms. So they are doped with donor atoms. So when they are doped with donor atoms, they are like N-type semiconductors, and the majority carriers are electrons. So option B should be correct. The p-n junction diode, the depletion zone has no electrons, no holes, no mobile charge carriers, force flow of charges. Now, actually, there is a build of space change on either side of the junction, both the electrons and the holes. And we saw, I also mentioned about this depletion region. So this is now going to be where there is, the electrons and the holes are now going to be built upon both the sides. So that particular zone is called as the depletion zone. So effectively, there is no mobile charge carriers in this particular zone. So no mobile charge carriers. Next. The reverse bias NPN junction decrease the potential barriers, increase the potential barriers, increase the number of minority carriers, and increase the number of majority carriers. So in reverse biasing, the width of the depletion region increases. Okay, so B should be the correct option. Electronic conduction to in a semiconductor takes place due to electrons only, holes only, both electrons and holes, none of the above. So electronic conduction in a semiconductor will take place due to the charge carriers, both electrons and holes. So it is due to both the electrons and the holes. So C should be the correct option. And the sixth one. Yeah. Sixth one. Yeah, sixth one. Yeah. The seventh one now. Yeah, sixth we finished. Seventh one. The diffusion current in the PN junction is due to from inside to P side, from P side to N side, from N side to P side if junction is forward bias, from N side to N side to N side if junction is, it should be N side to P side. Yeah, N side to P side if the junction is reverse biased. Okay. So what can be the correct option? Now, diffusion of current will not depend upon, that does not depend upon the external circuit. Remember that. Okay. So it takes place from the P side to the inside in the PN junction, from P side to the inside. So B should be the correct option. Save that, go to the next. A P-type semiconductor has acceptor level of 50 MeV above the valence band. Find the maximum wavelength of light which can create a hole. This is a quick calculation, one numerical. So let's quickly solve that. Yeah. Now, to create a hole, an electron must be given energy at least equal to 50 MeV. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, let us read the question. Yeah, 50 MeV is needed, he says. Okay. 50 MeV to go into the acceptor level. So we can actually put it like, say, Hc by lambda. Just a second. Yeah. So Hc by lambda is equal to, or not equal to, it is greater than equal to 50 MeV, he says. 50 MeV. Now Hc by lambda, or let us take it as equal to only. Hc by lambda is equal to, now let us convert this into means joules. So 57 into 10 to the power of minus 3 into 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 9. Okay, so now we need to calculate lambda. Lambda will be equal to 6 Hc by 57 into 10 to the power of minus 3 into 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19. We know the value of H is nothing but the Planck's constant, 6.6 into 10 to the power of minus 34. And C is 3 into 10 to the power of 8. So divided by 57 into 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 22. So when you simplify this, sorry, 50 children, not 50. I put it as 50. By mistake, I put it as 57. So 50 into 1.6 into, yeah, because it is given as 50 MeV. Right? So 50 into 10 to the power of minus 3. So you can see this. So when I simplify this, I get the value to be approximately 2.48 into 10 to the power of minus 5 meters. So let's see which option is correct. Yeah, this is correct. So I hope you understood we are now relating this to the emission. Okay. So the emission given by the particle is given by Hc by lambda. So that's how we are now calculating this. Okay. So this is now going to be the correct option. Save that, go to the next. What is the intensity of electric field in the depletion region, of which 2.5 into 10 to the power of minus 7 meters, if the potential barrier is 0.50 volts? What is the intensity of the electric field? All right, this is a very simple question. E is equal to V by D. Now V is given as 0.5 and the distance is given as 2.5 into 10 to the power of minus 7, which is nothing but, when this goes up, it will become, so that can be 0.5 or half. Yeah, 2 into 10 to the power of minus 6 per meter. Okay, so that is now going to be the value. Let's see which option is correct. Yeah, B option is correct. Okay, so intensity of the electric field, E, is given by V by D. Okay, P, where D is the potential and D is the distance. Okay, so that is having known this value, we can easily calculate. It's direct application. Okay, then coming to the 10th one. The impurity atom with which pure silicon can be doped to make p-type semiconductors are phosphorus, boron and antimony, antimony and aluminum and boron. Now p-type are trivalent. So obviously trivalent is aluminum and boron are having a valence electrons of 3. So obviously that should be the correct option. Go to the next. Electrical conductivity of pure germanium can be increased by 1, increasing the temperature, 2, doping with donor impurities, 3, radiation with ultraviolet rays, 4, doping with acceptor impurities. So which are the statements are correct? Now we know that the I told you electrical conductivity can be increased by adding some, by voluntarily or by deliberately we are increasing, doping it, or by adding the impurities. So thereby when we add the impurities, the conductivity increases. So electrical conductivity can be increased by all of these methods. See, first increasing the temperature, that can be done. Doping with donor impurities, yes, that is also right. Radiation with ultraviolet rays and doping with acceptor crystals or impurities. So all the 4 should be correct. So C should be the correct option. The conduction band of a solid is partially filled at 0 Kelvin. Then the solid is conductor, semiconductor, insulators, none of the above. It is very clear a solid is a conductor, right? It is a good conductor. So option A, so it should be a conductor. Option A should be correct. The approximate ratio of resistance in forward bias of PN junction is 10 squared is to 1, 10 to the power of minus 1 is to 1, 1 is to 10 to the power of minus 4, 1 is to 10 to the power of 4. So now you know the junction offers very little resistance when forward biased. So when electron current passes from P side to N side and offers resistance, then the current is passed from N side to P side, then you say that is reverse bias. So it offers very little resistance means then it should be 1 is to 10 to the power of 4. Yes, the option should be correct. 14th one. So I was insisting on the Zener breakdown, a very important concept we have to learn. Zener breakdown occurs due to minority carrier electrons in the transistor region, which are accelerated by the electric field to energies sufficient to free electron hole pairs. In the reverse biased PN diode, in which the electric field enables tunneling of protons from the valence to the conduction band of the semiconductor. In a reverse biased PN diode, in which the electric field enables tunneling of electrons from the valence to the conduction band of the semiconductors due to a decrease in depletion layer. So, which can be the correct option? Okay. So, first one, point A or option A, it is a description of Avalanche breakdown and not a Zener breakdown. So he says minority carry electrons in the transition region which are accelerated by the electric field. So that describes the Avalanche breakdown and not the Zener diode. So Zener breakdown. Then look into the B option. It is a reverse biased PN diode. So and he says in which the electric field enables the tunneling of protons. So it is due to the tunneling of electrons and not due to the tunneling of protons which happens here. So that is also a wrong option. Next is option C. In a reverse bias PN diode in which the electric field enables tunneling of electrons from the valence of the conduction band. Yeah. So under high reverse bias condition, what happens is the PN junction depletion region expands. Okay. This is now going to expand. So leading to a high strength of electric field across the junction. So as a result of which you have a sufficiently, strong electric field so that it will enable this tunneling of the electrons from the valence to the conduction band of the semiconductors, thereby leading to a large number of free electron charge carriers. So what happens is there is now going to be a sudden generation of carriers which rapidly increases the reverse current and thereby it gives rise to the high slope of conductance of the Zener diode. So that is, this C is now a clear explanation for Zener breakdown. So D is also incorrect because it has nothing to do. See, he says due to decrease in the depletion layer, he says, but that is also incorrect because it has nothing to do with the decrease in the Zener breakdown has nothing to do with the decrease in the depletion region. So that is also a wrong option. So only C is correct. So save that. Finally, the last one. Avalanche breakdown is due to, so the first, the previous question, the first option was a good example for that. So, good explanation for that. So in avalanche breakdown, the minority charge carriers collide with the valence electrons to create more hole electron pair. So thereby the breakdown occurs only by this manner. So it should be the first one. So you can see minority carriers acquire energy and collide with valence electrons. So you can look into the other options also. Breaking of valence bond due to high voltage directly, decrease in so obviously these three cannot be the correct option. It is now because of this minority charge carriers which are now going to collide with the valence electrons. Okay, so that it can create more hole electron pairs. So having completed everything, save that. Let us end the test. Let us see the results. So all the questions are right. So that is given by the green color. Had it been an incorrect question, then it would have been with a red color. And if you had forgotten to save the option, then it would have been an unanswered question denoted by the yellow color. So if you want to verify any incorrect question, say for example, let us say 8-1. See, a p-type semiconductor has acceptable level of 50 MeV above the valence band. Find the maximum wavelength of the light. So this question we got the correct answer. If you want to know the explanation part, you can as well get it here. So we have done it here. So even if you have done the test correctly, and if you are, if the answers are correct, if you want to know the explanation for any of these questions, if you by trial method, you would have, trial and error, you have clicked some of the, by Inky Pinky Pocky, you students are very familiar with that method. So if you're not very sure of the question, you just click it, and by fluke, it might be right also. So, but you have got the answers to be correct, but you want to know the correct explanation. As I told you, you can click on that particular question and get the explanation part also. So suppose if not got all the questions correct, you can as well take this test again, go through the revision notes again, all the concepts and the formulae, and then now you can take the test any number of times until or otherwise you're going to be thorough with the concepts. Likewise, you can take the test. You can go through the NEET revision notes for all the chapters, right from the first chapter to the last chapter. We've done so many tests, individual tests for everything. See, for physics alone has 117 tests, and chemistry has about 137 tests, and biology 55 plus 42, you have about 97 tests. And apart from this, you have the 38 full tests. So it can be 100% sure that you'll be by the end of all these practice sessions, you'll be thorough with all the concepts, and you can go and crack the NEET exam with utmost confidence. Okay, so all the very best children for the upcoming NEET exams. So being the last class, I am telling goodbye to all of you.